You're saying it one-sided. You're not telling the other side of the story on what they're doing either. You're not saying what Hamas did. You're not saying what they did.
What did Hamas do?
I mean, from day one, when you see the rapes and the videos, we've all seen it. This isn't something
What rapes and videos?
But stay on this here if you want to continue with this.
But what rapes and videos?
But my concern when you're saying Israel's doing it, you're saying the other side isn't doing anything?
No, but I'm asking. There was no rapes during October 7th. They've shown no rapes from October 7th. They showed no beheaded babies. All that was bullshit.
I'll send you stuff. No, there's plenty of stories. It's not all of them.
The Israeli articles that I saw recently said that there was only 2 babies killed. One was shot by a bullet and the other one died in a hospital. There was no babies in ovens. There was no beheaded babies. All that was all bullshit.
This is Patriot Pulse. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and comment. What unfolded on Patrick Bet-David's own show was something nobody expected. Not the audience, not the crew, and definitely not Patrick himself. Because he didn't get challenged by a political analyst or a seasoned journalist, he got challenged by Dan Bilzerian. And somehow Dan walked into the Valuetainment studio and ended up dismantling Patrick's talking points on Palestine with such clarity that Patrick genuinely looked caught off guard. You could see it in real time. The usual confidence Patrick carries, the rapid-fire claims, though we've all seen the video's fallback lines, they suddenly stopped working. His argument started feeling hollow the moment Dan calmly asked for evidence. And just like that, the polished debate armor Patrick relies on began to crack. What made it even more surprising is how quickly the conversation exposed the gap between Patrick's certainty and the facts he was trying to lean on. Dan wasn't shouting, he wasn't dramatic. He simply pushed back, asked simple questions, and Patrick had nowhere to go. That's why so many people online are calling this one of the biggest cell phones ever captured on the Valuetainment set. Today we're going to break it all down. How Dan flipped the conversation, why Patrick couldn't hold the line, and what this moment reveals about the broader media narrative surrounding Israel and Palestine. And if you're finding this breakdown useful so far, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Before we dive deeper, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? I always love seeing the mix of cities and countries tuning in. Because trust me, what you're about to hear only gets more revealing from here.
Every country, the big ones all have lobbyists. They all have lobbying that they're doing.
Not in the U.S. They're registered as foreign entities.
Right. I mean, if you're talking about, are you going to the dual citizenship part with Israel, Israel?
That's another problem is a lot of our politicians have far more allegiance to Israel than they do the United States. I mean, that's a whole nother issue as well.
Do you know why they did the dual citizenship? Do you know the history behind why they did the dual citizenship?
What do you mean?
So the whole concept of dual citizenship was because when Israel became a, country again, they didn't want the people from here who wanted to go back to Israel that didn't have a motivation to go if they were going to lose their citizenship here. So that was the reason why they did it. It was kind of like, okay, you're your own country. We kind of need some of you guys to move over there to help the country out. Yeah, but I'm not going to go. Why are you not going to go? Am I going to lose my citizenship here? But you are. I mean, we don't do that. Every other country, I don't want to lose my citizenship. Well, okay, how about if we do this? How about if we allow you, just Israel, to go back to your country, you won't lose your citizenship? That was the arrangement at the beginning why they did it that way.
No, look, I get it. I have 3 citizenships. You know what I mean? I think it's okay. I think
what's the third one? I know Armenia, but what's the
St. Kitts.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have an issue with dual citizenship. My issue is when somebody is holding a U.S. office and they are putting a foreign nation's interest before America's interest, and they are favoring that other country. And so that to me is treason. Like when you are a U.S. government official, your motivation should be to do things in the best interest of the government that you are representing, not 100%. Some other fucking foreign country. And that's the problem.
Okay, so but go through it. So what is the solution? Meaning, if Israel's the enemy, then if let's just say you don't do anything and everybody in the Middle East unites to take out Israel, do you think the Middle East is better without Israel? And do you think the world's a safer place without Israel?
100%. It's not even close.
Okay, tell me why. Why do you think?
Give me an argument otherwise.
Please. But
give me one argument why the world would be better off with Israel. Let's just start with that. One thing. Give me one thing.
Have you ever lived in the Middle East?
No.
I lived there for 10 and a half years. It's a very, it's not as like here. You can sit here, you can be an atheist, you can be an agnostic, I can be a Christian, you can be a Jew. He can be an LDS, Muslim, no problem. We can coexist here. You can do that in Israel. You can do that.
I mean, not really. They're operating apartheid right now. So everybody's not living equally.
Not at the level of Iran. Not at the level of what Iran is doing. I mean, in Iran, if you're thinking what Israel is doing out of control, do you know how much money Khamenei's family's made? Do you know how much money they've taken? They have 200.
I've never been to Iran, but I've been to Dubai. I've been to Saudi. Like I've been to UAE. So like, and they're all Muslim. They seem to be operating fine.
I would say Iran's slightly different than. But go back to it. So okay. So you think the Middle East and the world would be a better place if Israel didn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Israel's committed, so many terrorist attacks. They're stealing land right now. They're operating in apartheid. They're currently committing a genocide on Palestinians. Like, do you believe in the genocide they're committing?
I think they're fighting for themselves and they're defending themselves.
Do you think that's defense?
Well,
when 1,200 people died, and of which the 1,200 you've killed, and admitted that you've killed a lot during, your handle.
I will tell you this. The part I question, where people who are Jewish can't stand when I say this, I don't know how you, Netanyahu, claim you have the best intelligence in the world, Mossad, and you didn't know that on October 7th they're attacking.
They knew about it. They didn't. They wanted it to happen, so they had a reason to take that. Yeah, they wanted a reason to take the land.
I totally get it.
And they killed their own citizens. And they claimed that all these people got. That was bullshit. They claimed beheaded babies. That was bullshit. Everything that they said was a fucking complete. Not only was it a lie, but they committed all those atrocities themselves to the Palestinians and been caught doing it. In fact, they just got caught gang Palestinians. How many babies have they killed? All the things that they accuse the Palestinians of, or Hamas of, or whatever, they're guilty of 100-fold themselves.
So you,
and they've been doing that. Like October 7th wasn't the start of this. Like the start of this was Nakba. They've done so many different.
Disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, so I mean, this is not like, it's not like October 7th is like, it's all of a sudden they just came over there unsolicited and just killed people. Like they have been killing Palestinians for years and years, operating two sets of justice. It's like they have the justice for the Palestinians and the justice for the Israelis. And if you read the Talmud, like, if you're not Jewish, you're basically not a human. You're like, like cattle. If a Jew is killed by, somebody that's not Jewish, then it's the death penalty. If a Jew kills somebody that's not a Jew, then, you can't kill them. It's not the death penalty. Like they literally like segregate in their Bible.
They're very protective of themselves. I don't think anybody can debate that. I don't think it's a...
Well, it's not the problem isn't that they're protective of themselves. The problem comes when you think that you're better than other people and you think it's okay to lie to anybody that's not a Jew. You think it's okay to steal from people that are not a Jew. You have two sets of standards. The problem with that is it allows you to rationalize anything, right? And human beings are generally self-serving creatures. So if your fundamental religious belief system allows you to operate in such a way that you believe there isn't consequences to stealing from other people, killing other people, raping, kids that are under 9 years old, like if you think those things are okay, then, how are you going to operate? Because to me, like my moral code keeps me on track.
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's because you're saying it one-sided. You're not telling the other side of the story on what they're doing either. You're not saying what Hamas did. You're not saying what they did.
What did Hamas do?
I mean, from day one, when you see the rapes and the videos, we've all seen it. This isn't something
what rapes and videos?
But stay on this here if you want to continue with this.
But what rapes and videos?
But my concern when you're saying Israel's doing it, you're saying the other side isn't doing anything.
No, but I'm asking. There was no rapes during October 7th. They've shown no rapes from October 7th. They showed no beheaded babies. All that was all bullshit.
I'll send you stuff. No, there's plenty of stories. It's not all of them.
The Israeli articles that I saw recently said that there was only 2 babies killed. One was shot by a bullet, and the other one died in a hospital. There was no babies in ovens. There was no beheaded babies. All that was all bullshit.
As the debate continues, what becomes clear is that Patrick Bet-David isn't just struggling to make a point, he's struggling to hold together an entire worldview that's being challenged in real time. Every time Dan pushes back, Patrick circles to the same phrases. You're being one-sided. What about Hamas? We've all seen the videos. But repetition isn't evidence, and in this conversation, it becomes obvious how thin those talking points actually are. What makes the exchange even more revealing is how selective. Patrick's reasoning becomes the moment the discussion shifts toward Palestinian suffering. He presents himself as balanced, but the balance disappears as soon as the conversation gets uncomfortable. Instead of addressing decades of occupation, human rights concerns, or unequal treatment under Israeli policies, he returns to the same narrow frame, Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. And here's the core issue, acknowledging Palestinian suffering does not equal defending Hamas, recognizing the long history of displacement. And unequal treatment doesn't excuse violence. It simply acknowledges reality. But Patrick treats any criticism of Israel as if it automatically undermines Israeli victims or justifies Hamas, and that's a false binary that oversimplifies a deeply complex situation. If you're finding this breakdown helpful so far, go ahead and tap that like button. It really helps the channel reach more people. What truly derails Patrick's argument, though, is how unprepared he is when Dan starts asking direct questions. Dan isn't making wild accusations. He's asking for evidence. Where are the videos? Why were certain claims exaggerated? Why did officials retract statements about incidents that became international headlines? These are fair questions in any political discussion, yet Patrick doesn't answer them. Instead, he leans on vague assurances. We've all seen it. I'll send you something later. In a serious debate, that isn't a response. It's an admission that the claim isn't grounded in verifiable facts. Meanwhile, Dan brings up documented issues, the unequal justice systems, reports from human rights organizations, and long-standing concerns about the treatment of Palestinians under occupation. And Patrick brushes past those points entirely. It raises the question, how can someone champion critical thinking while refusing to critically examine the side they're defending? Another challenge in Patrick's framing is how he describes Israel's actions as self-defense without addressing the stark imbalance of power. Israel has one of the most advanced militaries in the world, backed by global support and full control over borders and resources. Gaza, on the other hand, has faced years of restrictions that have devastated everyday life for civilians. Simplifying this into a one-sentence defense narrative overlooks the enormous scale of force involved. Patrick avoids discussing proportionality, avoids discussing civilian casualties, and avoids the fact that major international bodies have raised concerns about the situation. Instead, he stays locked into a single talking point, as if repeating self-defense makes all other context disappear. And whenever Dan raises broader issues, Patrick immediately redirects to Hamas, as if Hamas represents every Palestinian. That's not analysis. That's a rhetorical shortcut that prevents any meaningful conversation. No one denies that Hamas committed violence, but no one should deny that millions of Palestinians who had nothing to do with those actions are living under conditions shaped by policies far older than October 7th. The conversation about dual citizenship highlights another moment where Patrick sidesteps the real concern. Dan raises a legitimate question about political loyalty and foreign influence in U.S. policy, instead of engaging with the point whether political power can be shaped by allegiances outside the United States. Patrick veers into a historical explanation that doesn't address the present-day implications. It's a way of answering without actually answering. And throughout the debate, Patrick behaves like he's walking a tightrope. He never fully commits to a position because doing so could upset powerful audiences or professional relationships. Maintaining neutrality becomes a strategy. But neutrality in the face of human suffering is not moral clarity. It's avoidance. Dan speaks plainly, Patrick speaks cautiously, and in conversations about global politics, cautious talking points can sound disconnected and at times even rehearsed. The longer the debate goes on, the more Patrick relies on familiar talking points while refusing to engage with the documented issues Dan brings up. It becomes less about evidence and more about protecting an image of being rational, balanced, and objective, even when the arguments don't support that claim. If Patrick wants to advocate for facts over feelings, he has to bring all the facts to the table, not just the ones that fit the narrative he's comfortable with. Until then, his position on this issue risks sounding less like a thoughtful analysis, and more like an attempt to appear neutral while ultimately siding with the status quo.